All right. Today on the T Podcast, we have a special guest from UL Lafayette. She is the Chief Diversity Officer and Professor of Architecture and Design. Her name is Kiwana McClung, and we're going to be talking with her about her role at UL Lafayette and also their upcoming Women's Leadership Conference, which is March 21st this year. We'll talk about that in just a minute, so sit back and relax and enjoy the show. All right, let me put on my split screen here again. And real quick, I have my presenting sponsor, Chase Group Construction. They take the lead and become your one point of contact for the entire design build process. They are a local company. So if you're looking to build a business or renovate a business, they have a diverse portfolio of projects that range from medical centers to popular restaurants and to multi-unit shopping center developments. Their website is chasegroupconstruction.com. So check them out. They support us, so maybe you should support them too. All right, so Kiwana, pleasure to have you on. How's it going today?
It's going well. It's a little rainy outside.
It's
but
been
I'm
that
going
way
with it.
all week.
Yes, I know. I'd rather this over that cold weather, though. Like, I didn't like that ice.
Yeah, oh no.
Yeah.
So go ahead and tell us a little bit about you. Are you originally from Lafayette? If not, just kind of give us the lowdown on you.
Absolutely. So I'm not originally from Lafayette, but I have roots here. My dad was from around the area. He the New Iberia, kind of Jeanerette area. So I spent a lot of time here. We used to always come back for like parades and everything.
Oh yeah,
so
I'm pretty sure festival and all that stuff.
Yeah, all the festivals. My childhood was here in Lafayette, but I'm from Baton Rouge, which is right up the road.
Yeah.
So I'm
just
not
across the pond, kind of.
Just across the pond. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So you are a professor at UL Lafayette. When did you become a professor? Because you seem to be pretty young.
Yes. I get that all the time.
Yeah.
I've actually been a professor for going on 11 years now. I actually started in 2013 at UL Lafayette in the School of Architecture and Design as a young assistant professor.
So 2013?
2013.
Nice.
Young assistant professor, and kind of worked my way up, got tenure, and then I was awarded full professorship about last May. So, and then, that was around the time when I kind of stepped into this role as Chief Diversity Officer for the university. I think that I kind of got tapped to step in as interim because my research in the School of Architecture and Design was around inclusive environments and inclusion in architectural education and the profession. And so I was doing a lot of just kind of work, doing a lot of talks, working both in professional organizations, nationally, locally, here in Louisiana, and just writing about how important it was and ways that we can improve that condition. And then I got asked to do it for the whole university, which was a challenge, but I was up to the challenge. And then after doing it for a while, I realized I really liked it, that a lot of my skills and the things that I was writing about and working on were transferable. And so now I'm trying to create an inclusive campus environment for the entire campus and, just kind of cultivating and using my community connections to just make sure that everyone at UL Lafayette has a great experience, that they stay connected to the university and that they are able to go out and fulfill their dreams because they had a great educational, experience.
So, my question to that is, I know what inclusive means.
Yeah.
I think most people know what the word means.
Right.
But I guess I want to know, was there ever a time that the school or in general was not inclusive? Like, so with your role, what are you doing to make it more inclusive? Like, and what examples can you, I guess, point out that you are actively changing to make the school more inclusive?
Yeah, so to kind of speak to the what it means and everything, I think a lot of people have a misconception about, it's not necessarily saying that the school isn't inclusive, but people are different and identities are complex, right? Nobody is one thing. And those things can come together in a way that makes someone's experience difficult. And there's no like office or place you can go to kind of get something fixed, right? Like to get that situation figured out. So to kind of give you an example that I just kind of ran into today, I have a student, he's an international student. He has to go and pray at certain times during the day, right? And so there are often students that come to our campus and they have religious beliefs. Sometimes they have a disability. Sometimes they have sort of cultural kind of quirks or traditions that kind of conflict with the way we run a university, with our schedules, things like that. Or they may be neurodiverse, right? They think a certain way or think differently. They have all of these differences in terms of how they engage with people, right? Some people are just like effusive. Some people just like, I don't want to be around anybody. I don't want to touch anyone. And if you go to a class and your teacher's like, hey, this class is about discussion, right?
Oh, no.
Get out there. What do you do, right? If you have a test that's scheduled at the time that you have to go pray, and this is a part of your religion, what do you do? So those are just small examples, but those are the kinds of things we address in that office, right? And of course, there's all types of communities we address. We have the LGBTQ plus community. We have a number of different cultures that live in this community. They eat different foods. Some of them are vegetarians, some of them, eat kosher meals. We have a number of people who just have trouble communicating, or their language or vernacular issues, or a word means something different, and all of a sudden there's a misconception that happens, and it was like, who navigates that, right? Yeah. It's easy to just say, oh, that teacher is being, or that professor is being insensitive about this, rather than have the conversation. And so I'm there to kind of bridge the gap and figure out what offices and what people and what resources on campus can I connect people to in order to mitigate those things so that they're successful. And you'd be surprised by just how busy I am running around, just kind of connecting the dots, And I think people have a big misconception about what diversity, equity, inclusion work is. That's
because on the surface level, most people would probably think, especially in the southern area, is that it's just a white and black issue.
But I think that if you look at it, you realize that there are people who are white, people who are all backgrounds who come to the office and they need help in some kind of way, right? Like there's something going on that's getting in the way of them being successful, right? So it's not that. It's very much, about all of the things we run into, all of the differences that we have. And with my background in architecture, it's spatial as well. There's spatial issues that come into play that we don't even think about, that we don't even realize.
How so? Like, explain the spatial issue. Obviously, with you being an architect and in design, I am genuinely curious on like how you include inclusivity in design, and like what does that look like?
Right. So a good example I can give you that we're probably all struggling with right now, that I also think has a lot of misconceptions, is like bathrooms. Right. Seems like a simple thing, but in the LGBTQ plus community, but also just with people who are dealing with past traumas, people who have body image issues, people whose appearance doesn't necessarily follow conventions when it comes to their gender, they have problems with bathrooms, right? They have issues where I had a student, she had really short hair. She was a really tall girl. She identified as a girl, but people would see her in the women's restroom and they'd be like, you don't belong in here, right? And that creates a problem for, like, imagine you're just trying to go to the bathroom and that happens, right? And so you can imagine what happens with the LGBTQ plus community, from transgender students to just students who just don't fit everyone's idea of what you conventionally should look like according to gender, right? So, I know that people have their different ideas about that, but people still have to live. People still have to go to the bathroom. People still have to go to school. So,
how do
we solve that?
Yeah.
Yes. So, actually, my predecessor kind of got the ball rolling, and I kind of like finish it off. She said, well, how about we make sure that all of the single-use restrooms aren't kind of just like a gender binary, male, female, but they just say restroom, like just restrooms for everybody. And so she worked with several entities on campus, facilities, to get that list. And then when I joined and I found out about this project, I was like, this is something I want to address because of the fact that in the building industry, if you look at the International Building Code, there are requirements for a certain amount of bathrooms for men, women, based on occupancy in a building.
Right.
And that's code, right? Like that's a code that
Same
we
thing
follow.
with parking spaces. You need a certain amount of parking spaces.
Yeah, right. For ADA and also just for how many people you're expecting to show up. And so it creates a quandary when you have these bathrooms like that, but you got a group of people who need a single-use restroom, whether it is a father who's trying to take his daughter to the restroom, right? And where do I go? Do I go in the men's restroom? Do I go in the women's restroom? Well, they go in family restrooms. Not all places have family restrooms or single-use restrooms.
So single-use would be basically only one occupancy or like basically one toilet situation, no stalls. Okay, got it.
No not multiple stalls.
Making sure I'm understanding the
yes. So we had a number of them on campus, single-use restrooms, but a lot of them were gendered, where you either male or female, and some of them were kind of like behind office suites and kind of hard to find. So we worked to not only get those restrooms, like we surveyed. I had some architecture students actually do this. They surveyed all the single-use restrooms on campus, their condition, where they were located, and we kind of got a list of which ones were suitable to be gender-neutral restrooms. And then from there, we were able to get the signage changed so that everybody knew these restrooms were for everyone. Then we created a map so you can find them. Okay. And so many people have been they feel so great about having these, and they're like, this is great, this is fantastic. We've gotten a lot of support for it. So it's just simple stuff like that that we don't realize that are just kind of built into our built environment, that get in the way of people being able to just be normal and be human.
Let me tell you, whenever we go anywhere, if there's a place that has a family restroom and I have my little boy with me, I tend to gravitate using that more because not only does it feel, it's I guess the main thing is privacy. Yes. I like privacy.
Yes.
Because stalls sometimes have those, I don't know why America has these wide gaps on the doors.
You can peek in.
Where you can just walk by a stall and see somebody's whole business. That's weird already.
Yes.
But yeah, just privacy and just, I guess the overall idea that it feels cleaner. Not necessarily that it is, but it just feels cleaner because you don't expect so many people using it at one time.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like I wish the world was like Buc-ee's. You ever been to Buc-ee's and all the bathrooms
we've been to Buc-ee's many times.
Yes, like that's what we need in the world.
But you know what? Buc-ee's, that is manpower.
I know.
You need manpower to keep bathrooms clean.
I know.
And you need promptness. And when you finish using the restroom at Buc-ee's, there's usually somebody just few minutes later comes in, cleans it up. And there's sanitizers in these stalls.
That's
the stalls doors are all the way down. You can't peek in.
Exactly.
It's beautiful bathrooms.
It's a great model.
Yes.
It's a great model.
But it's not practical for everything.
It isn't practical for everything. And definitely we understand that, right? Like I think even in the design community, there's an understanding that there's limitations, monetary limitations, just kind of like what makes the most sense, for the building's use and program. But, we do have to also look at that there are a lot of things that if we put a little thought into them and maybe just on the front end, put a little bit more effort, maybe a little bit more money into thinking about these things, we make life easier for a whole lot of people. And then we extend the lives of buildings and we don't have to spend as much money just coming at the back end and making changes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I got another question before I mention a couple of more of my sponsors, and then we'll get to talking about the women's conference coming up. So with architecture, obviously inclusivity and all that seems to be a pretty prevalent part, but like what got you interested in ultimately making a career out of architectural design? Like what got you into that? Like why?
Oh man, I think when I was younger, I had a lot of people that just kind of like encouraged me with my art skills, but also kind of had this like scientific, mathematical background. You know, I was kind of scientific, but I also was artsy. And maybe around junior high, I had a teacher that told me that, like, hey, have you ever thought about architecture? You have like the skill set for something like that. And so I decided to look into it. Seemed super interesting. Had never even thought before, wow, there are people that sit around and design these buildings that we're in. Like, it never occurred to me. So I decided to explore it. I explored it through a high school magnet program in Baton Rouge.
Oh, yeah.
And it was awesome. I got to do some awesome things. I got to learn programs that you don't even learn until like maybe your second, third year in college, and design some stuff as a
So you're doing this in high school?
Yeah, I got into it.
I wish I had
school.
something like that.
Yeah.
I went to a small school in like near the country, so it's like we have very limited options.
Yes, I wish there were more programs like it, because it's definitely. And I actually am involved in the National Organization for Minority Architects, and we have a summer program for students who are like interested in it, just kind of expose them and say, hey, this is an option for you. But I do wish more high schools had drafting classes and classes where you can learn, you know, some of those programs like AutoCAD and Revit and things like that, because I think that like we need a variety of people designing for the world, because we design for everyone, for every discipline. I had this mentor one time who used to say, you know, architects have to know a little bit about everything, right? Just a little bit, because they have to design for everyone. And so it's very interesting to talk with people. That's what I think I like about it, the people part of it. People forget that building's about people. It's about serving people, providing spaces for them to do the things that they have to do and live their lives. So I like the people part. And I think, you know, that kind of got me into kind of the research that I eventually got into, is how do we make these things better for people? You know, how do we make spaces better for families and individuals from all places? And how do you do that in a society like ours that has so many different people?
Right.
Like, that's hard. Yeah. But I think it's worth it to try.
So you mentioned buildings for people, and that made me think of a term that because I'm, like I said, I'm a graphic designer by my main trade, but I do this full time now, so it's interesting. But I still do graphic design, and I like design in general. I love architecture. I'm not an architect, but I've always thought, how cool would it be to be one? But I was like, you know, that's a whole nother world. That's another path that I have to take and a journey. But I do know that in design there is this, I don't know how to explain it, but basically there's design and then there's function, or form and function. So some people design with form first, and some people design with function first. And sometimes, depending on which path you choose, what you're designing may not look pretty, but it operates very efficiently and very well. And then the opposite is, the building is super pretty, but is terrible to use, or whatever you're designing, it's not good to use, but it looks great. Like a car, for example. You can have the nicest looking car, but it might be the biggest piece of crap. But you're paying a lot of money for it because it looks really nice.
That's right.
So what do you say to that? Like, what do you prioritize? It sounds like you prioritize function over form. But like, there's obviously this tug to want to make something pretty and appealing, but also make it functional.
Well, it's those two camps. You're absolutely right. Function follows form, or form follows function, right? I learned all of that in architecture school. We go through all of that, you know. But like I said, people first. So like my motto would be, we design for people, right? And people need both.
Yeah.
People need the aesthetics, right? Aesthetics give us important information about what a building is, what it does, what happens inside, right? It allows us to feel good about it.
Yeah, they got the feng shui of the building.
Right. And, you know, something monumental and that just looks like a fortress is just like, oh, I'm not going inside of there. That looks like a nightmare, right? And then something that is really pretty, but it's just like, I can barely get through the door. Like, or there's this weird corner and there's nothing happening there. It's just a waste of space. Like there's a balance that you got to follow. So I'm always trying to meet that balance. I'm always telling my students to meet that balance. You want to attract people to your building. You want people to know what's happening in that building, what the function of that building. We have typologies all over, you know, the world. And here in Lafayette, and I know in some instances I will pull up to a building, I'm like, what is this? Is this a house? You know, like, is it residential or is this a business, right? But there are certain typologies that when we look at it, we know what's going on inside of it, right? We know a church when we see it. Even if it's like a metal building, there's something that's added to say, this is a religious building, right? And people, you know, are attracted to that. And if it was just like a metal building, people would just be like, is this church? Like, I want to go in
I've
there.
seen that too, though.
Right, right. So I think a balance. I think that's the key. There's always like these sides that people want to choose on things. Like form follows function, function follows form. I'm on this side, I'm on that side. But nuance is so important, right? That's how, you know, individuals kind of live their lives. And, you know, this is very similar to the way I talk about diversity, but the way our brains work is we're taking in information, millions of bits of information at every moment. We would go crazy, absolutely crazy, if we just cognitively, you know, clocked all of that information.
Can't do it.
No, we can't do it. So our brains make leaps, right? It's why bias exists. Everybody's biased. That's the key, right? So just like in that regard, in architecture, if we can give people, you know, an idea of what's going on with that building, what this is, what that space is, then we make the leap that helps us move around and navigate the world very easily, that helps us feel better about walking into certain buildings. Yeah. So I think there's a balance that we gotta, like, it has to be functional, it has to work, you know, it has to be economical, but it also has to be aesthetically, you know what I'm saying? Like, it has to communicate to us aesthetically, right? And I'm all for the beautiful, flashy kind of buildings. I like that. But if they're not functional, you know, if they don't work, then I think that's a waste. It's beautiful and it's not. People can't. They're just looking at it as a piece of sculpture, and people don't want to actually use it or operate out of it. You know?
Yeah. So I love the perspective. I appreciate that. So now I want to ask you, because I've had a few architects on in the past, and this is like my 230th first episode, I believe. Wow. So I've been doing it for a little while. Yeah. Oh gosh, somebody was commenting. Ronnie, he's one of our followers. He said sign his forehead. I don't know what. All right, Ronnie. Okay, so I ask every architect that I have on. What is your favorite piece of architecture, whether that be here, abroad, in the same country? Like, if you had to pick a place or a specific building that you enjoy going to and enjoy looking at the surrounding buildings and the architecture, whether it be a bridge or a skyscraper, like where is your happy place and you enjoy being and having that?
Oh my God, that is so hard because I enjoy so much architecture, and it's so different everywhere you go, and I love all of those differences. But I will tell you that probably the most profound architectural experience I had is I had the chance to teach abroad, which was awesome. I taught a bunch of grad students.
Oh, nice.
We and it was actually in France, but over the weekends, you know, you can kind of go where you want it. And with my students, I was like, I don't know where y'all are going to do this weekend, but I'm going here. And for some reason, they were just like, yeah, let's go on. We want to go with you, wherever you're going. And I was very, you know, like, okay, well, I guess we're continuing class on the weekend. But we went to Barcelona one weekend. Yep. And I had, throughout architecture school, I said, when I ever get to Barcelona, I am absolutely going to see the Sagrada Familia because, like, I've heard so much about it. a building that's been being built for 200 years is continuing to be built today.
Really?
Like, it just blows my mind, right? It's just like, what is going on with this building that they're still building it? And then, just all of the descriptions of it have just been phenomenal. And I've seen pictures, right? But pictures doesn't do a place justice.
Absolutely.
So I was like, we're going to see this building. And they were like, yes, absolutely, we want to see it too. And I swear I did not say a word the whole time I was in that building. My mouth just fell open, and I was just mesmerized and like by the light. And there was just like no electricity, no electrical anything, but somehow it was designed so that the light can come in, and these beautiful stained glass windows and the sculptural columns and just all of this intricate work that just had stuff that looked lifelike on it. The doors, they looked like ivy and vine, and you can actually see these little bugs kind of crawling in it, but it was like sculpted. And then you still see the scaffolding, and the cranes up, like still putting this thing together.
So you said 200 years they've been building this?
Over 200 years
Good
they've
grief.
been still building this thing, and then I had a ticket so I can go up in one of the towers, but I was so busy just like looking up and looking around that I missed my appointment. So I didn't get to go in the tower, but it was beautiful. And so it was, and of course that city is beautiful. And definitely, just all around us, I can find beauty in architecture everywhere.
Yeah.
I love, A. Hayes Town, and he has a lot of work here around Louisiana. So I'm always like, oh, wow, the brick is wonderful. So yeah, I don't necessarily would say I have a favorite building, but I have had profound architectural experiences, and I have experiences every day, which make me get a new appreciation for architecture.
Yeah. What do you think about the Burj Khalifa building in Dubai?
That's very interesting, because I can appreciate the ingenuity and the work that went into creating that building. It's very cool, of course, but it was also very interesting. Like I said, I'm interested in the people side. It was also very interesting that for a long time, those buildings, kind of in the UAE, in the Middle East, they didn't have like a defined sewer system. Yes.
Oh, wow.
So you had like these buildings and whole cities popping up, and they were like trucking waste out of the city every day just to make it work.
That's strange.
I know. So, but that's the interesting.
But they had a pretty building.
Pretty building though, but like
the function was
kind of
bit.
like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But I think they've since kind of fixed it and everything and added to it. But it's just interesting. They grew so fast that area kind of like popped up. It was like rapid urbanization. So to see that and to think about that is very interesting.
Yeah. All right. So now it's time to get my sponsors, and then we'll talk about this Women's Leadership Conference.
Okay.
So you guys have already heard this sponsor before, but if you're a new listener or you're watching for the first time, the Music Academy of Acadiana. It's Acadiana's top choice for music lessons. So if you're looking to get into music, whether you're a young thing or an old thing, whatever age group you fall into, and even if your experience with music is zero, or maybe you're a top tier musician and you want to learn a different instrument, they have all the instruments. They teach students of all ages and styles in piano, guitar, drums, violin, all those things. Even they teach audio production. So if you want to learn how to mix music, they even help you improve your voice. So they have coaches for that. They have about 500 so students, probably more, because I think they had a 500 set of students a couple of years ago, so they probably have more students now. It's founded by UL Lafayette Music School graduate Tim Benson, who is in a cover band called The Criers. It's an emo cover band because he loves music. But so they are nationally recognized, voted as a top music school since 2016. Their goal is to make music lessons fun, educational, and to help foster the next generation of musicians and creative thinkers. Their website is musicacademyacadiana.com. Check them out. They're on Facebook, social media, Instagram, all those places. And check out The Criers. They have many different shows that they do. So if you're a fan of emo, screamo music from the early 2000s, they have that for you. And then we have electronic protection systems, or EPS. You probably have seen the signs on properties before around town. So they've been around the community for over 20 years, and they recently expanded to Houston, Texas. So what they do is they sell and install smart home security systems. So they have great payment plans, 0 down payments, no out-of-pocket expenses for the equipment. I have been a customer first before they were a sponsor. So I approached them. I said, look, I like your product enough to offer you a sponsorship. And if you're willing to take it, I'm willing to partner with you. So their system is really cool because we used to have another major security system, and like the cameras would catch 30 seconds of motion, and then it wouldn't catch anything after that unless there was motion again on the camera. Well, with this system, it records all the time. So I have 2 weeks of video footage that if something happens in front of my house, that while I'm not there, if there's no motion in front of the camera, but like in the distance, one of my neighbor's houses has a lot of motion going on, and I get home and I see that, let's just say, God forbid, a fire happened or somebody broke into someone's house, I can actually go and look back at any day within the past 2 weeks and see what happened on that day, or especially if it's something that happened with my house. So really cool. And also they have whole home water systems. So if your water smells funny or tastes funny, they can help you with that. It's a unit that they put outside your house. It's basically a water softener, but it also filters your water and gets rid of the hard water, the sediment, all those crazy things. But check them out. Their website is eps-online.com, and you can also use this little referral link that you can see on the screen. It's link.developinglafayette.com/EPS. And with that, we will continue the conversation. All right, Kiwana, I want to know about this Women's Leadership Conference. Obviously, as you could probably tell, just, I know you don't want to assume, but I am not a woman.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
It's totally fine. It's totally fine. And I want to know, what is this? It's 17th annual, so it's been going on for a while. What is it about? What is it for? Who is it for? Obviously, it's for women, but like, why would women want to take in this Women's Leadership Conference?
Yes. So as you said, the Women's Leadership Conference has been around for 17 years.
Crazy.
I know it's crazy. I've been involved with it pretty much since I've gotten to UL Lafayette, but for the last 3 years, I've been kind of like heading this thing. But it's a wonderful conference. It's all about leadership, mentorship, women in the community presenting the work that they're doing, their ideas, and talking about ways that people can galvanize themselves to kind of either elevate their careers or elevate their personal selves, right? And we have a lot of men that support it as well, so not only women come to the women's conference, men come to the conference, men support women during the conference, men present at the conference.
Okay.
They may present on ways that they are elevating women, right?
Got it.
So it's all about women, but men are involved too, because we need men to elevate women,
Okay, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but it's definitely it's a chance for you to become a better person, right? Enhance your personal sense of belonging, to get to know other women who are out there doing things that maybe you admire and that you would like to do, to learn. It's definitely educational. We have everybody from academics to consultants to personal coaches to people in the business community who are involved with this. Students are involved with this conference. And everyone, it's about having a good time and becoming a better person. People connect and kind of mingle at these conferences, and they exchange information so that they can create partnerships to improve things that they're trying to improve in their own lives. It's great, and it's supported by so many people, and it has now grown, from sort of like a little university conference where it's mostly people affiliated with the university and maybe a few people from the surrounding community, to becoming really a regional thing. And now we have people from all around the country who are registered to come to this conference. So it's really a great time.
Yeah. So is it leaning towards like an entrepreneurial sense? Does it lean towards like just self-improvement? Like, is there a specific theme, or like what's the vibe like?
Yeah, it's a theme every year for the conference. Usually we follow the National Women's History Month theme, which changes each year. Last year, we focused a lot, on issues just kind of related to mental health. This year, we're focusing on the future of work and the role of women in sort of the future of work, right? And we kind of glimpsed a change in work over the last few years, right? With the pandemic, all of a sudden people are working from home, people can work from afar, remotely, right? And it's allowing women to be both mother at home and work from home. But also we're just witnessing a rise in women leaders, right? Women in leadership roles, women running companies and corporations, women starting their own businesses. So a little bit of all of that you mentioned, really. We have sessions in where we engage with our lead center, for business development. Yeah. We have sessions in which we'll bring in people from our health community and medical community to talk about women's health, mental health professionals as well. But also just researchers who are people who are affiliated with the university, who are doing research on women in leadership and self-efficacy and all of these things. And they come in and they present on their research and the things that they found. And it's very much, we have tracks within the conference. We have an overall theme, but we have tracks so that we can let people know that there's something for everybody here at this conference. No matter what you are interested in learning, there's something here for you.
So what is the size of this thing? So 17 years, obviously it sounds like it could be pretty sizable. Right. What's the average attendance at these conferences?
Yes, so it's varied. Of course it dropped a little bit and kind of fluctuated during the pandemic. Right. But last year we had over 350 attendees.
Okay, that's not a small number.
Right, we're hoping to grow it even more this year. And we have some pretty dynamic keynote speakers. Last year we had Allie Landry as a keynote speaker. Yeah,
from Breaux Bridge, huh?
Yeah. She actually talked about her book. And got to sell her book at the conference. So a lot of people came and were like, we want one of these books, right? And so she talks a lot about being your best self and caring for yourself and things like that. But the year before we had Hang Black, and she talked a lot about her experiences as a Vietnamese woman kind of working in business and marketing, and it's great stuff, right? And so every year we have a dynamic speaker. This year we have Claire Babineau-Fontenot. She is a graduate of UL Lafayette. She is the CEO of Feeding America, who gave billion, like just all of these meals away, during the pandemic. And she was honored this fall as our outstanding alumni at the university.
So she's the CEO of Feeding America?
Feeding America.
And where was Feeding America founded? Do you know?
I have no clue, but I know their offices are in Chicago right now.
Oh wow, yeah. Okay,
right. But they feed everyone, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fantastic organization. I can't. Sometimes I read stuff about them, like, oh, I forgot that information about this company and the things that they do. But or nonprofit.
That's a big role, man.
No, it's fantastic. And I mean, she has the chops for it. She has a background, and she worked for Walmart and kind of like upper leadership and before and stuff. And she has her roots right here. She's gone to schools right here in the state. Southern University, the school that I went to, she went there for law school. So she, I think it's great things that she's doing. It's stuff that I definitely admire. But also, I just think she has a lot to say about leadership. She's talked a lot about her leadership journey in the past, and I feel like I've learned a lot from her. So I'm hoping that our attendees will learn a lot from her as well.
Oh, I'm sure. And you the attendees, it's up to them to absorb whatever they're engaged in. So
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if it's good, it'll work. And you mentioned earlier, in this part, that there's a lot of women coming up in leadership and becoming entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And it's funny you say that, because over the past, I've been running Developing Lafayette since 2012, and writing about businesses and following businesses and kind of talking with owners. I've noticed more and more women owners than men owners.
Interesting.
Which is, it's really interesting. And I feel like the most dominant population right now, at least that I've seen in business, is women.
Yeah.
there's so many women-owned businesses in Lafayette. Now, obviously, it goes farther out, but it's, and I don't know if that is just the grit that we have here. The women are just pulling themselves up, or does it correlate with the move to elevate women? And I don't know exactly when that crossover happens, but over the past 13 years that I've been doing this, yeah, I've noticed a lot more. And especially, I don't know if you've heard of Caroline's Cookies.
Yes, I have. Of course I have.
Of course, yes. Okay.
They're delicious.
She started that business at 19 years old.
Isn't that something?
Wild.
Right.
And I really, I can't speak for her, but I've had her on the podcast probably 3 times now because I just love talking about cookies. And I'm fascinated with the come up story that she has and how her business blew up. And it's fascinating all the way around, but like being so young and being a woman,
right,
just mind blowing how successful her business has become. And she just recently expanded to Baton Rouge.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah,
I'm
crazy.
very excited about that. I told my mom them, I said, you have to try these cookies. They're fantastic.
Let me tell you, they will get you stuck.
Yeah,
they're good. They're good. But we don't have to keep plugging that. But yeah, just in general, I've noticed many women entrepreneurs, women business owners, and women in leadership roles that were just kicking butt, and they were not placed there because of this whole because I feel like when you mention inclusivity and diversity, some people get the feeling, and it's not unwarranted. Sometimes it does feel like this, that organizations, especially majority white or majority men organizations, feel the need and under pressure to put a person of diversity, whether that be a different gender or a different skin color, because for the sake of diversity, whether that person is qualified or not, they feel pressure. We have to have a black person in this role.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I don't agree with that. Like what I think, and I think that's also another misconception about diversity. And people make that misconception when they're trying to diversify, right? They say, we got to get a black person in this role, or we got to get a woman in this role. And really, no, that's not what it's about. It's about removing the barriers so that everybody is qualified, has a chance. That's what it's about. I do not agree with that, because I think that leads to all types of problems. People who feel like, okay, this person isn't qualified, you've just given them a job. But also imagine what it means for that person who gets put into that role. All of a sudden, they're wondering, did I get in under my own, kind of qualifications and my merit, or am I in because I'm checking a box and I'm a token? And nobody wants to feel like that. I will tell you, that is a horrible feeling to have. So I wish people understood this more. I wish on both sides of whatever this issue is that they understood it. Do not try to just fill a role because we need to have a person of color. What you need to do is make sure that in your processes, in your selection processes, when you are putting out ads, that you think about it in such a way that you attract candidates from all different backgrounds, that you are not putting any barriers in the way or any signals out that this is what we want, right? So that you can get the best qualified candidate, right? Like it's not about race or checking a box or having a woman or anything like that. I don't think anybody wants to get a job for that reason. It's about giving everybody a fair shot. And I think that actually makes us stronger, right? Because now we are actually getting the strongest person, and not just the person that looks like us or that we feel comfortable with, or that the person that is somehow they have to be the best person for the job. They fit our culture, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that does a disservice to us, because the research shows that when we have diverse groups of people sitting at a table solving problems, we come up with a better solution, right? It is not a secret why, companies are prioritizing this, because they've noticed that it's good for their bottom line. They notice that, if I'm a company and I sell to all of these different types of people, then I need to have insight about all these different types of people. I need to have all kinds of ideas and people with the different perspectives at the table so that we can make sure that we reach all of those people. Otherwise, we don't reach people, or we mistakenly kind of alienate them because we've had some kind of faux pas, against that group of people. And so if you have a product that you're trying to market, and you intentionally insult a community in today's world of social media, and the internet, it's very easy for somebody to say, y'all do not go to this company. Look at what they said. They don't feel they feel this way about us, right? And companies don't want that, and
right.
And so I think this goes just as well for institutions, right? For different groups of people. We, as much as I know people don't like it, we have this society that's just kind of global now, right? We can talk to people all over the world. People work all over the world. We have people right here, in Lafayette who get educated at UL, and then they go work in oil fields in countries all over the world, right? And so understanding and being able to work with and being able to engage with different cultures, with different people, and come up with solutions is a good thing in order to be able to do your job, right? And so that I do not agree with saying this is a diversity hire or anything. I do not agree with anybody being in a role because they fit a certain demographic or anything like that. Definitely, I know that whenever people are forming committees and stuff, they say, okay, we need these voices, we need these people.
Yep.
So I
representation
understand. We
and
need
all
the
that,
representation. I understand that, right? But the other thing we got to realize is that sometimes we have groups of people who aren't able to really put themselves out there or get the help and support and the mentorship that they need, but just because we haven't had much diversity in a lot of our areas of society over the years. And so for me, imagine me being, a Black female professor in the School of Architecture, and there are students who are Black, and they feel comfortable coming up to me and say, hey, could you mentor me, right? And so that makes a difference because I can encourage those students to do the things that they do to be the best designer that they can be. I can encourage them to do the work and compete, right? Not go out there and expect anybody to give anything to you. Work hard for it. And so then when they get out there in the world, they can compete and they can get things on their own merit. So it's never the representation, sometimes it's I don't want anyone to get a job because of their how they look or the group they belong to. But when it happens, that representation is powerful because it encourages other people and allows mentorship to happen, allows people to have an example of what they could be, and allows them to realize, oh, if I work as hard as her, that I can move on to, and I would hope that nobody has ever chosen me to be in any role because of my gender, race, or anything like that. I'm a hard worker, and and I actually was one of those students who worked 2 and 3 jobs throughout school. Man. I didn't have any kind of scholarships or anything like that.
Good for you.
Yeah, I had tops, but that's about it. And I think everybody has tops. Who has the grades and everything.
Yeah.
But that's it. And so it's really disheartening for people to make those assumptions that you got your position because of what you look like or what group you belong to, and that is just not what I want for people at all. So I would not encourage anybody to hire somebody for those reasons. I would encourage you to look at your practices and your policies and your processes in which you are hiring people and thinking about bringing people onto committees and forming organizations, and make sure that those are not biased in any way. That's what you do.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's good. I can tell you're passionate about that.
Oh, yes. It
definitely
goes through it. Yeah.
And I didn't mean to go on a little tangent there, but it's still, it goes very similar with the theme of today's conversation.
Right.
One thing to that note, and then we'll mention some more stuff about the conference and obviously how to sign up and all that good stuff. But one thing that I think, and I agree with, is removing, at least for a good amount of forms, is removing those check boxes that you mentioned, where it says, white or Caucasian,
Right.
black,
Right.
you know, Hispanic, you know, Asian. Like,
Right.
why do we need those on there for
Yeah.
like job applications, for
Right.
example? Why does that matter?
Right.
It mattered back in the day, apparently.
Right, right. Well, I think in a lot of ways, people do that because they're trying to track things, right?
Okay.
Yeah, like how can we find out if there is, you know, sort of like this bias kind of going on and these things happening in which people are not being given a chance if we don't see patterns in, hey, you got a bunch of people from this background working in this organization and then not a lot of people from this background, or, you know, federal government, you know, has all types of programs and things in which you have to report on those things in order to get them, right?
Okay.
Right? So it's that kind of stuff.
It's a double-edged
right.
sword.
It's a double-edged sword because like it's very complicated. A person's, you know, ethnicity, race, ethnicity, and all that stuff. It's like, complicated.
Even me, even though I am part of the majority and I shouldn't have anything really complicated to worry about, me checking that I'm white still made me feel like, why do I got to put there? What are they taking? What data point are they using? Why are they taking that information and what are they going to determine about me applying for a job?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I didn't go to that company and say, let me see how many white or black people are working.
Right.
Do I want to work there? I need a job.
Of course.
I feel qualified. Like,
of course. Right.
Can I just not check that box? But I get your point of data and federal government having certain, whether that be grants or this and that for that business or that person. I get that.
Yeah, there's a lot of demographic stuff that they use it for, you know, and I think we just, like you said, we can't separate ourselves from context and history. We have a very complicated history in this country, and with that history comes the need to get data so that we can figure out how, you know, if we are solving some of the problems that we've had back in the past, right? But I think also that form, you know, those check boxes, they reduce you down to this group and you might feel very complicated about that group, you know, like it's like I sometimes I look at it and I'm like, okay, Black African American, and it's just like, but it's complicated.
Yeah,
because
and not all Black people align with being African American.
Right. It's like, I've never been to Africa. You know, like I've never been to Africa.
And Africa is a continent. It's not even a country.
I've never been to the continent. Like never been. And there's so many different people just on that continent. You're absolutely right. So many hundreds of different dialects spoken.
I know. I mean, there's French in the continent.
Yeah,
and then there's, like you said, tribes.
But even if I just look at my own family history, you know, like that thing is a complicated thing, right? Even up until today. And so it's weird, it's strange. My maiden name is Surf. So, you know, like my family's are from this area, you know, so like it's a very complicated history. But that reduces you down to a group, you know, and that's definitely how many white people are. You might be, you know, Scottish ancestry or French ancestry, like, you know, from Spain. You know, your ancestry could come from a lot of different places, you know, but you're reduced to this color. And it's like, this is complex.
It is.
But it would be very complex to track all of that as well, right? Like, so it's, I don't have an answer to how do you do it? How do we keep up with all of the numbers and all of the
while not also presenting a potential for bias or judgment.
Right. It becomes a very complicated thing. I don't know how to answer it. I think it's one of those problems that we are probably gonna deal with in a very multicultural society, you know, for a long time. That's just kind of like what we have going. But I definitely understand your frustration with it. I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people are, you know, proud of their ancestry, and then those things sometimes reduce your ancestry down. And I think some people identify really heavily and strongly with those groups, right? And that's, I mean, I don't know if that's okay or not. I guess it is, right? But it is, you know, something that exists. But it's I think that we can't, like, what we have to start to realize is that's kind of life. Life is very complex, and if we feel that things are unnecessary, we have the power to kind of change those things. But we should educate ourselves on the entire situation before we make a judgment. Like, let's learn everything before we allow ourselves to be swayed in one way or another on these kinds of topics. You know,
I love it. Well, getting back to the conference.
Right.
So you have special panels and breakout sessions too. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, so we have panels that range a number of different topics. We want to look at issues of, kind of like, how do you get into a leadership role? How do you kind of break that glass ceiling, right? As well as, how do you balance like your home life and your work life and your kids and your families and your husbands and all of that kind of stuff while also working? Because that's something that that women over the last 100 years have been thinking about, but before that, didn't have to think about that as much, and I think too that it's it's a number of things that we just need to think about in terms of women, right? So one of the things that I think is a big thing is women in STEM fields and tech fields, right? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, technology, and I know people will ask, well, why does that matter, right? Why does it matter if women are there, right? Well, women use technology.
They do. They do.
Women are affected by science and
it's almost
engineering.
like women are humans or something.
Exactly, right? And can you imagine being a woman and all of the technology around you is designed by men, and all of the engineer, all of these things around you, they're kind of like in the tech or STEM field, or handled by and designed by men, and you're wondering why they don't take into account, the things that women deal with, or the things that we, our concerns, like that's a real thing. It happens all of the time. And so if women were like in those fields, they can say, hey, I think we need to think about it in this way, right? We need to think about this, right? It's very interesting that you brought up that we're talking about this topic. Recently, I know that you've been seeing that all the women are buying these Stanley cups.
Yes,
have you been seeing the Stanley cups?
Yep.
Right?
Who hasn't?
Right. They're expensive and they're coming in pink colors now. Mm-hmm. When it started happening, I started like looking around like, what's going on with these
Stanley
cups?
was designed as just a working man's thermos.
It's a working man's thermos. It's a working man's company, right? The company designs for the working man, right? I can't say that I didn't have any Stanley tools. I'm kind of a woman, but definitely that was their market, right? Yeah. So I kind of got interested in looking up what happened, right? And then I saw the kind of I think it was like a video that this influencer put out of her having the cup, her car burned down, the cup is fine, and there's ice still in it, right? And then she's like blowing it up, like, because she's like, look at this, guys. These cups are amazing, and I need this in my life, right? Like, you need this in your life. And then all of a sudden, Stanley's like,
eligible for commission at the bottom of the video.
Right.
Paid sponsorship.
Exactly. They're just like, hey, girl, you want some cups?
Yeah.
Like, what do you need? But they also realized that they were missing a whole market of people, right, that they could market to, right? And I guarantee you they got a woman on board to kind of jump on board with Stanley to be like, hey, this is what you need to do.
If they came out, they did, but like the fact that they came out with a Valentine's cup, red and pink,
right?
Like,
right.
Somebody there is making the shots, and if it's a woman, good for her.
Yeah. Even if it's not a woman, I guarantee you they're asking a woman.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
They have focus groups of women.
Because the rush to Target to get these dang cups that are $50 or whatever they are.
Some of them are like $300. Like, oh, I know they're up there. But it's just a great example of. When, all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, there's a whole market here that we've missed, that we're not tapping, that we could have tapped into. And now look at what we were able to do, right? So it's a lesson, but I think it applies across the board. It's like women live in this world too, and there are technologies that women use a lot. And so why shouldn't they be involved in the creation of these technologies? They may have some insight, even if it's not completely just about how to make this or how it should look, but how you should market it, right? And those things help, us be better and our best selves in the world as well. So I think that's one of the other focuses of the conference is to kind of highlight that this is for you too. Like, women can do math, right? Women are definitely in our hospitals, so they're definitely in science, but women can be researchers, and they can be researching issues and sicknesses that target women, right? Like, just imagine that. Like, I'm a woman and I'm researching something that targets women, right? Rather than somebody, saying, okay, we got to figure this out. Yes, I think a man can research things that target a woman, but imagine if he had a woman's input and help with that, right? They can be an even stronger team. He can come to conclusions a little bit quicker because she's like, hey, have you thought about this, right? So that's some of the things that we really want to come out at this conference, right? Let's talk about leadership. Let's talk about those fields in which women aren't very represented, but we want you to see that there are women doing it. You can do it too, and actually make the world better for a lot of people.
I love it. I'm glad you mentioned the STEM because that was some of my notes. Yeah. And I think we mentioned also earlier, you mentioned LEAD.
Yes.
And there's an Accelerate Women's Entrepreneurship program through that.
Yes.
And so that's really cool. Side tangent again, and you mentioned the Stanley Cup fiasco and all that, and the fact that men are designing things for women. Why aren't women involved in designing things for women in those male-dominated companies?
Right.
It reminds me of a video I saw that Ellen DeGeneres made.
Yeah.
You may have seen it. If not, basically, she made fun of this pen, and it was a women's pen. And she goes, I'm so glad that Bic designed a pen for women because I don't know how I made it. Because apparently the only pens have been out for just men, and now there's finally a women's pen.
Right.
It's just so strange how I know a lot of it is dealing with marketing and adding a color to something. Like Stanley has these cups for years, but they changed the form a little bit and slapped some cool colors, and boom, women eating it up. Right. So it's just funny, but. It goes back to the topic of form and function. Yeah. The form didn't change all that much.
Nope.
Just the color and the function even is still the same. It's just, I guess the form would be the part of the color. Right. But still, not much of it changed. It's just,
it still functions the same.
Yeah, still functions the same.
But I think this goes back to kind of what we were talking about earlier with sort of like inclusion, right? Inclusion is also being seen. Right. Okay. So imagine going through the world and not feeling like you're seen. And I don't think she was kind of like, because that comment about the pen could have been taken sarcastically, right? But I don't think she was trying to talk about the fact that, oh my God, my life has changed because I have this pen now that's pink.
Well, she's a comedian, so she was poking fun at it.
Yeah, it probably was but it's about being seen. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's just like, hey, listen, we see you. We know that you use our pens, right? We are giving you options, right? Men probably, I guess some men do, they like a nice pen, right?
Oh,
a lot of men are just like, hey, if the thing writes, if I can sign my checks, if I can, sign my documents with it, if I can take my notes with it, I'm good with it, right? But I think there's a lot of people out there that are just like, I want a little something extra to my pen, right? I want something that makes me feel good, right? A little extra something. And definitely I think that Ellen was probably being sarcastic, but I would not doubt that some woman went in the store and she never would have looked at those pens, but all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, look at this pen.
There you go. Yeah.
Right? This is cool.
Yeah. And also women tend to be more on the emotional spectrum.
Yeah.
And so there's an emotional connection to certain things that look, and like you said, being seen, and men are usually just function all the way. It doesn't have to be pretty. Just give it to me. It's got to work. Right. But there's no emotional connection to it. I just need it because it works.
Right.
But women there's a feeling that goes in with a purchase. I know, especially with the Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
You could buy a cup that does the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yetis have been around for years.
I don't have a Stanley Cup, and I have tons of cups that do the same thing. And I'm like, good. I'm good.
But, sometimes the emotional connection that you make to a product, whether that be a color or the way the marketing is perceived, that's a pull. Yeah.
I think it's a status thing too,
that
right?
Too,
like
definitely.
All of a sudden, if everybody has these Stanley Cups or whatever, and they're cool and they're like, hey, it's good to have this or whatever, and people know how much they cost, right? People kind of like show off, it's like, hey, listen, you know how much this cup costs, right? So I think it's a little bit of that too. But I will say that that and this, I think this kind of works for some men too. Some men like things that look really nice, but for the most part, I think a lot of women, they want to make a connection with the things that they buy, with the companies that they buy from, right? Like a lot of people want to make a connection with it. Like they don't want to just, like they know that they're buying for a cause. Like I buy these sunglasses called Diff. They're not super expensive, but they're not cheap. You know, they're probably about $50 to $100 a pair. If you get them on sale, you can get them for $50, right? But they give a lot of their proceeds to the visually impaired, right?
Okay, awesome.
And so I can make a connection to that. I'm just like, well, absolutely. You know, if you're going to help out somebody that's visually impaired, I can get these glasses, and they're not like super fancy, you know, name brand glasses, but they're the company is doing something that I really care about and that I really am for. So I will spend that amount of money if it's going to help somebody, right?
And that goes back to the word. And I guess I should have chose a different way to say the word, because when you say emotional,
right,
it has a negative connotation. And I saw your face when I said it.
Yes.
So I do want to make sure I point that out.
Right.
That wasn't missed.
Right.
But there's an emotional connection, emotion towards a purchase, not emotional, because emotional makes people think, oh, she's just crazy.
Right.
That's not what I was implying at all.
Right.
But you kind of alluded to that.
Right.
With a cause that is something that pulls on your heart.
Absolutely.
An emotional connection.
Right.
And some men have that.
Yeah,
but
a lot of men have
the
it.
burly men, the men that just, I just need it to work kind of thing, they would have glossed over that.
Right.
But women see through just the function. And I think that's a lot of it deals with marketing, and all that good stuff goes into branding, and that's why brands do so well whenever they really include what women really think about and want.
Right.
There's a whole nother conversation that can be had.
No, there is. But I also think that, there's a recognition of the thought and the creativity. Like just like I said, your environment gives you all types of information all the time, right? There's something about seeing a object or a product that you can tell there's a little bit more thought that went into it. There's a little bit something extra to it, right? There's something about that is attractive, right? And I don't know if just women, feel that way. I think men feel that way as well. But I think men will just kind of like take it as, okay, yeah, listen, if I get a pen that works, I'm not going to make a big deal about it. Maybe they have different concerns throughout their day. But I can definitely say for me, I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for all women or anybody. But I'll say that sometimes I can, as a creative myself, I can see the work and the effort and the thought and the fact that this person said, we're going to think about this person or this group of people, or, like in the creation of a product. And that makes me feel seen, and it makes me feel intrigued, and I appreciate it. And then I want to support that kind of effort and that kind of thought and creativity and foresight. And so that's kind of my thing. I don't need like a crazy, girly pad, writing pad or drawing pad or whatever, because I like to buy sketchbooks and things like that. I need a pen that's going to write correct, like flow, the ink's going to flow. That's what I need. I don't need anything to be pretty. But if I get something that has both those things, like if you put them next to each other, and I see a pad that's just purely functional in its look, basic black, but it has really great pages and a pen that has, it writes really well or whatever, but it's just kind of plain, next to one has the same stuff, but it's in a really nice purple or mauve or even gray. The gray is nice and creamy, and it's like this, writing on it that's in, gold or something. I'm like,
okay,
this guy's the same quality, but it's a little extra something that makes me say, okay, let me get this one, right?
Yeah.
And then a little bit of personalization to it, right? Like I'm not like everybody else. I'm different, and I want the things that I use to reflect that I'm different. So I think it's a lot like that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, now going back onto the conference.
Yeah.
So are there awards? What does that look like?
Yes. So the conference will have certain awards. We have the Rising Star Award. So someone who's like kind of early or mid-career, who's kind of like becoming, their name is getting out there. They're doing some great things. They're getting recognition. You can nominate for someone for that awards. And then you kind of have this emerging leader. So this person has emerged as a leader. They're doing great things or whatever. And then we have the Sarah Brabant Trailblazer Award. And that award is for people who have like had a fantastic career. They've done great things. They're giving back to their community. They are recognized for being the best. And so we give out those awards, those 3 awards at the conference, because we want to recognize women in the community who are doing fantastic things, who you want to keep your eye on, right? And so it makes for a really great day, right? We have this great kind of opening. We have all these great sessions. We have exhibitors there at the conference, so you kind of figure out what businesses are in the community, and a lot of them are women-owned or women-focused businesses. And then you can see a great keynote speaker, eat a great meal, see these people win these wonderful awards. Maybe you support those people, you know those people, you can clap for them, and then just kind of like end out your day with a lot of great information and activities. We have like raffles and stuff like that. We give away prizes. A lot of businesses within the community will give us raffle prizes. And then our sponsors are so great about just saying, hey, yeah, we want to be a sponsor. We want to show that we support this. So we're all about making sure that people have a great experience, that they all get something great from the conference. And as you can see, a lot of women are put on display at this conference. They are this is our platform to elevate names that you probably wouldn't hear about very often, but to elevate them to a point where everybody is like engaged and they can have the spotlight for a while.
I love it. I love it. So, okay, now, how can people register? Where do they need to go? I know we need to mention the dates again. Mm-hmm. So what are all those details?
Yes, so the conference is on March 21st, 2024. It starts early in the morning. You can register for the conference at diversity.louisiana.edu. There's a tab that's called the Grow tab. You click on it and it gives you Women's Leadership Conference. There you can register for the conference. Our call for proposals is actually closed. So if you're trying to like be a presenter, at the conference, you missed your window. We have over 70, so like we can't take any more. Yeah, we can't take any more. But you can go and nominate a person in your community still. If you have a business that you would like to be on display at the conference, you can apply to become an exhibitor at the conference.
Are you still seeking sponsors too?
Yes, and if you want to, if you're a business and you want to have your name up, and we put our name on all of our materials all over the conference, you can become a sponsor as well. We'll be at the Cajun Dome Convention Center this year, so parking is going to be much easier than it's been in the past when we've had it at the Student Union on campus. So register, and even if you can't make it all day to all of the breakout sessions and things like that, if you want to come and hear Claire speak and see the people get their awards, the awardees get their awards, you can come to the luncheon, and you can pay a luncheon only price and come try some of the great food that we have there.
Awesome. So I'm guessing the website, diversity.louisiana.edu, has an itinerary. Is there like a full list of? Okay.
Yes. So we, of course, we have our sessions that we're still kind of reviewing. We just closed our session submission period last week. So now we have a committee that are reviewing the sessions so that we can pick them. And once they're picked, we're going to put them in the time slots. You can check that website, and there'll be updates on what the whole itinerary for the day is. You can bet that we'll have like a morning sessions, kind of a midday presentation, keynote presentation and awards, and then afternoon sessions, and then we'll close out with a nice little reception.
Love it. All right. Well, cool. Look, Kiwana, I loved the conversation. I think we got some really deep, kind of nuanced topics in there.
Yes, we
mixed
did.
in with the conference.
Yeah.
But I think that that helps kind of provide good conversation in between the talking about the conference, because we probably could have talked about the conference for only 15 minutes and that would have been it.
Right.
But I wanted to stagger it a little bit, and I think we did good in that. There was a few things in there that like I said, got pretty deep, and and you obviously have a very, very passionate sense of this role that you're in, and I love the headspace that you're at with it.
Yes.
It makes me feel good about the whole move of diversity and inclusion, because there's a lot of, I would say, propaganda
I agree.
that tarnishes that.
Yes.
And there's also information that makes it seem like it's a good thing, but then you have both sides, and
right.
and it goes back into almost a political discussion. It's like,
yes,
okay,
absolutely.
it's like it's so noisy that it's good to hear from a direct person that's working in that field, in that role,
absolutely.
to see what the thoughts are and what your I guess path and all that stuff moving forward is with it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you gave me the chance to talk a little bit about that, because I think that we all have a lot of misconceptions out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I will not come out and say that there aren't people who are doing things that I don't agree with, in the diversity, equity, inclusion space. But I also won't say that there aren't people who are misrepresenting what the work actually is.
Yeah.
That is happening. But I encourage people who are curious about that to come talk to me, to come talk to other diversity professionals who are actually doing the work, so that they can get the truth. Because I think we hurt people when we assume that it's one thing and it's another thing. I think that there are a lot of people who want to cut this off and don't realize that they're actually, they're trying to cut off something that actually helps somebody that they love, right? And it's amazing to me just how much, people don't realize that they're kind of moving towards a view of this that actually is going to hurt people that they care about in their lives. And if with more education, I think we can get to a better place on it, and maybe we won't even be calling it this. The words will be different in the future.
Yeah,
but
it changes.
Yeah, it changes. Things change. It wasn't called that when I first got into this kind of work. I was just like, we just need to think about everybody,
Right, right.
and then all of a sudden there was these words, and I was just like, okay, we can use those words. It means the same thing, right? It's actually always been around. It's amazing how I go and I research sometimes, and I realize, oh, it's the same thing. We've always done this. We've just never called it this. So the propaganda really blows me away.
Yeah,
because it's like, you do realize that this stuff has been going on for years. We've been trying to do this for years, ever since different people all of a sudden are getting together and living together and working together. We're trying to figure out ways to overcome some of those barriers that are in place, some of those misconceptions that happen. But now we have words for it. We have a whole movement for it. There's a lot of companies that are just like, hey, we're embracing this. We're not letting this go. This is good for us. But there are a lot of people who feel threatened by it. And I don't want anybody to feel threatened when it's supposed to be for everybody. It's supposed to be about everybody's growth and everybody's success and promotion. So I hope that we can get better about educating people and spreading what it really is, rather than people just kind of having these misconceptions.
Love it. All right. Well, that is all I have. I don't have any more questions. In fact, if I did have any more questions, we would be going into... We'd be almost at 2 hours. We're at an hour and 17 minutes. We've been talking a good bit.
Yeah, we have.
And I loved every minute of it. I think you have a good bit of information. The Women's Conference, again, if you want to learn more about it, the link is in the caption as well. It's diversity.l. I keep saying, I want to say LSU. It's not LSU.
No.
Diversity.louisiana.edu.
That's it.
Check it out. Like I said, the link is in the caption of the video as well. Kiwana, I appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk.
Ben. I appreciate you having me.
Well, I look forward to seeing what you do on your journey in your career. I'm pretty sure this won't be the last time I see your name somewhere, but
Hope not.
Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation, and I love that you're an architect, because I think that's a fascinating skill set, and your thoughts on architecture and the reason for it is fascinating. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate you.
All right, guys, that is it. If you want to listen to the audio version, I'll have that up a little bit later today. But you'll be able to watch the video on Facebook and YouTube after the fact. So if you want to share this video with somebody, you can send them the link and or the audio version, whichever. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's all those other places that you can get your podcasts too. So y'all have a great weekend, and we will see you on the next one. All right, later.